Hello, happy St. Patty's Day, everyone. This is Kryptonite Dragon, joined by Dante Zero, and we're bringing you another edition of the PodStation from Trophies on PSN. First off, our topic this week will be guilty pleasures in gaming, and we'll start off by giving a little brief overview of what's going on with the site. Before we get to that, and we'll of course get our game of the week from Dante. How you doing, Dante?
Good, good. To be sure, to be sure.
You drinking some green beer right now, or?
No, sadly not. Well, you've got to remember I'm English, aren't I? So we have our own one, which is St George's Day.
Green tea?
No, St George, because you've got to remember, like, I know St Paddy's Day is a big thing for Americans, but here in the UK it's like an excuse to just go out on the lash and get drunk. But we also have the Welsh one, which is St David's, I think it is. We've got English, which is St George's, and I think the Scottish is St Andrews, so they're just all excuses to have public holidays and get drunk.
Yeah, and here in America we don't need an excuse.
Yeah,
to get
but
hammered.
See, in America you wouldn't be able to have St George's Day.
Ah.
But you still all celebrate St Paddy's Day, and it was weird. The same with the Scottish, because the Scottish get about it, but you don't have a St Andrew's Day or whatever.
Yeah, well, don't tell us we can't have it. We'll just change the name. We'll find some way to have it and make it our own.
Yeah.
Involve alcohol.
Yeah. But yeah, you definitely need to start celebrating all the English holidays, or shall I say, not English, the British holidays, because
Well, I'm all for we should celebrate every holiday around the planet, because that way there like be a constant flux of holidays.
Nobody would work.
You'd have like 4 holidays a week. Go work one day.
Yeah.
Well, this week I'm Jewish. This week I'm, you just every day just change. Tell your boss.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool, I think.
I can't work.
Yeah,
Wednesday's my religious holiday. I can't work.
It kind of reminds me of Bender out of Futurama, where he's just making up robot holidays to get the day off work. That's what we need. Need more holidays.
We need more holidays.
Where was I? Pick it or eat. Yes, that's where we were.
Wait, hang on now. Let's get to the site news. I'm going to talk a little bit about. We've had some challenges. I just posted a thread. I understand there's some challenges with the art cards and creating those. Having a little trouble determining what that is because it works fine for me. I'm using Firefox, a recently updated Java. Most notably, a few people using other browsers are not able to generate cards. So I left a little thread. So if I could get some feedback, see if we can diagnose this. Get everybody so they can get their cards. Also, we've recently added some programming to be able to update the front pages. That's kind of going on in the background. I know we messed a little bit of stuff up on the navigation bar recently. I fixed that, corrected it, but we are working on some additional stuff for the front page, so you just give us a little bit of time. And with that, we have the tournament system up and running as well, and hopefully the events guys are working hard on that to understand it. It is very involved and very in-depth, so we got to give them a little bit of leeway there. I basically gave them permission to try it and test it. Found out how to delete everything after the fact, so we can go ahead and everyone can throw in if they want to and help out there, even regular members if they ask you. We could probably go ahead and set up a tournament or do it on the next game night. Find some way of recording scores, whatnot. What are we working with? Killzone next time around?
Yeah.
Killzone 3?
Sadly, Killzone 3.
Maybe we can find some way to help those guys out by putting in some numbers, testing that in some way. So on to Game of the Week.
Game of the Week. Yes. There was actually some cool PSN games that came out this week, but unfortunately money and time have not allowed me to pick them up. However, I did pick up one nice little time killer. Sadly, it is for the PS Vita. It's called Burn the Rope. Don't ask me who it's developed by because I completely forgot off the top of my head, but the concept of the game is it's a puzzle game where essentially you set fire to rope, and the rope, obviously like fire normally does, it burns upwards when you give it oxygen and fuel, and so it sets up like little puzzles for you to burn the rope essentially, and you have to rotate the rope so that the flame is always burning upwards of the rope. And so yeah, it's a cool little game. It's about £3.20 on the PlayStation Network store. So it's not a lot of money. It's change you could find down the back of the sofa to really pick that up, and it's a fun little game. It's got some quite challenging puzzles on it, but it's a nice little time killer. So I'm going to recommend that as the pick of the week.
So you rotate. I don't understand when you rotate you're rotating the rope. Is it the rope through a maze? Are you picking your path through the maze by rotating it?
No. So what you do is essentially you pick a point on the rope. So say the rope is like a star shape all the way around.
All right.
You would press a point on the star, and that will set a flame going. And so then what you'll have to do is rotate the star using the PS Vita's touchscreen. You rotate the star so that the flame is constantly going upwards and burning the rope.
Oh, okay.
And so you have to rotate it.
So if you're not rotating at the right time, the flame will go out?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
And so that presents quite a number of challenges on that. But it's got about 10 trophies for it. It's, there's a gold trophy in there somewhere along the line. So it's just a nice little PSN game to pick up, a nice little time killer when whether you're commuting or travelling on a public transport or something like that, or someone's driving you, you just fire that up, play that for a couple of minutes, and it's a good little fun thing to do. Cool. It's inexpensive as well. So, as I say, £3.20. We've often talked about the pricing of digital content over the numerous PodStation episodes we've done. And unfortunately, PSN games, since PSN launched back in 2006, have steadily increased in price, but not necessarily in quality. This is priced just right for those that want a 5-minute time killer. So, burn the rope, pick it up if you've got a PS Vita. It's definitely worth checking out.
Cool.
And speaking of PSN stuff, I should also point out, if you are in the UK at the moment, there is an absolute shed ton of bargains going on the PSN store at the moment. This includes things like Hitman Absolution for £15, Medal of Honor Warfighter for £17, Far Cry 3's in there, Dishonored for £17. There's a bunch of, because normally every month they do like sales on the PSN, but at the moment I think there's about 3 simultaneous different sales going on in the UK store alone, which is the nation's favourite sales, price drops, and then there's PSN Plus sale as well. So if you really are looking for a bargain, now's the time to do it over the next week or two. Go and check out some of the stuff that's on the PSN store, because there are some full retail games on there that were worthy of a lot of nominations of Game of the Year award. There's some excellent titles, as I say, like Far Cry 3 on there as well, but there's also some PSN games and stuff, and you can really save a bunch of money this month as well. So definitely do go and check out. If you're in Europe, and especially if you're in the UK, do go check out the PSN sales that are going on there at the moment. Just thought I'd add that in, because I know some people tend to hold back from buying products to wait for the price to come down a bit, and it seems that certainly in the UK, Sony UK seem to have cottoned onto this a bit and decided to really push some of the bigger retail games down in price. So that they're now actually competing with retail outlet stores.
Mm-hmm. Should really try to mention those when we hear about sales. And the other thing is not to forget about holidays. We were talking a little bit earlier about PlayStation Home. For those that enjoy PlayStation Home, also any kind of holidays, like in the U.S. here with St. Patty's Day, usually they'll have special events and stuff going on in there as well, including sales on home stuff and special items that you can earn. So there's something.
I think there's some Little Big Planet costumes up for grabs as well.
Yeah.
I think the St. Paddy's costume, if you haven't already grabbed it, they usually give it away free every year. But if you haven't grabbed it, then do. It's free.
Cool.
Can't argue with free.
Yeah, that's the best price. I like that price.
I think we all do.
So guilty pleasures. What do you have in
Yeah.
mind?
Well, I was just thinking about some of the stuff that games and things associated games that we pick up and we buy and we don't really think much about it, but then sometimes, I mean, if you buy, say, a game that's played by millions, say a Call of Duty for example, you don't really think anything untowards to it because you're essentially you've got 16 million other people that you play with. But there's games that you pick up off the shelf and you shouldn't buy them. They're terrible, but you still buy them anyway.
Or you risk
get
it and
them
find out they're
home,
terrible.
and
Yeah.
but sometimes some of those games are actually really good.
Okay.
And so it got me thinking. It was like, over the years, what sort of guilty pleasures have I sort of, picked up and thought, this is probably what most people would consider terrible, but I actually love it.
Okay.
So, with that in mind, let me just think of one off the top of my head that I can think of. Probably something along the lines of Alpha Protocol. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah, I do remember it. I think I might have played like a couple of minutes of it.
Yeah, it was developed by Obsidian, and it was interesting actually because I read an article that was doing a retrospective on it, which puzzled me as to why somebody would want to do a retrospective on it. But the game itself was a spy action RPG developed in conjunction with Obsidian and Sega, and it was well known for its overzealous use of, well, shall we say, female operatives within the game and stuff like that. But we know the game got pretty terrible review scores. But actually, there was a lot of good stuff within it. That people should find as enjoyable. There's certainly a lot of stuff that you would find in other games like Mass Effect, for example. It had that very much RPG thing, yet the concept of it was great, but the execution was poor. But I don't know. I love the concept of having a spy RPG because it's not something that we've, seen a lot of, and still don't see a lot of to this day, where you have spy-based video games. I mean, can you think of any sort of spy-based video games we've had for a couple of years?
No.
Exactly. So I've got to admit that probably is one of my guilty pleasures. I really did kind of enjoy that game a lot more than perhaps I should have done. Certainly picked it up on the cheap as well, and for what it's worth, I would still recommend people go and pick it up and enjoy it as a guilty pleasure. But I'm just thinking of some other games that I would consider perhaps maybe a guilty pleasure that I'd enjoy more than I probably should do. People who know me probably know that one of my vices is probably SingStar.
Yeah? You sitting alone at home in the dark singing to yourself? You're like, this is cool.
No, but I mean, it is, for what it is. It's a lot of fun. I mean, there's a lot of questions. People will be like, "Oh, that's not a very macho thing to do," singing and stuff. But you know what? So be it. It's a lot of fun.
Well, guys go at least here. I went through a phase where I was hanging out with a lot of other folks, and we had this group of girls that we always hung out with, and it was karaoke this, karaoke that. And I tell you what, I mean, if you actually get into doing that stuff, and you can have a lot of fun. You can just get a little liquored up.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. People just need to relax about the whole, it's a female game thing or it's a kids game thing. I've played kids games because of my kids. I've played Hannah Montana. I've played iPet. I loved both of those games. They're pretty good. Hannah Montana wasn't bad at all. Very easy, very short. But I mean, there's some challenge stuff in there to it. It wasn't just do this, do that, like
Yeah.
at least not completely. And iPet was very challenging. It had I played I got a version from like Tokyo or something like that,
Yeah.
where you had a card and you had to wave your hand in front of it, and it
Yeah.
was use of the camera. And they've evolved it, but that was the first kind of like motion control and things like that. That was
Yeah.
it came before all those things, so it was like new technology. And even though it was like a kid's game, you're playing with like a little cartoon pet, a cat or dog or whatever.
Yeah.
It was still enjoyable from the standpoint of like, hey, this is some new technology. Hey, this is a different way of interacting with a video game.
Yeah, because
So
it was the first sort of real game that sort of paired motion controllers with AR, alternative reality interactivity.
hmm
And it was the first kind of game that we'd seen. Because I mean, I remember watching a trailer for iPad E3, and I was like, that's going straight on my pre-order list, and I was kind of like, I know I shouldn't buy it because I know it's a kids game, but this technology is fascinating. I could see, even someone as old as me, sitting down with my nieces and nephews, or even just on my own and having a blast with it.
yeah. And I've got everything. I actually unlocked trophies on it, so I beat everything on it except for accessing the store, which I'm not able to do from a U.S. account. So I've got the the simplest trophy in the world is keeping me from a platinum in iPet. So now it just pisses me off.
No.
I do have my Hannah Montana platinum.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Badge of pride there.
Well, I've got 5
But
kids. I've got a daughter, so.
I'm just thinking of some other games that that have been pretty good that you shouldn't really enjoy.
Well, yeah, you got me thinking. Like, I played Mercenaries 2.
Yeah.
That was actually like everyone was saying, like, oh, this is kind of a crap shooter. I played
Well, it
the
was
hell
crappy
out of that game.
compared to the first one.
Well, I played the hell out of it. I really liked it. I tell you what, I played a lot of that. I played past getting trophies and everything like that. I played it for fun. I
Yeah.
played it, all the time with my son, and I don't know, it was good times. I liked it. For
I think
something that I heard a lot of bad things about, and generally from people that I knew had played it, it was stellar.
the
Um,
thing the thing with Mercs the Mercenary series, it sort of set the foundation for games like Saints Row and Just Cause, because up until that, when the first Mercenaries came out, it was an extremely well done, well received game, but up until that point you didn't have sort of open world games other than GTA that would go and destroy whatever and basically do whatever you want for a laugh. And obviously Mercs 2 came out, and since then we've had just Cause was revived, and obviously Saints Row as well. So that's actually a pretty good guilty pleasure in some respect, because it did shape the way of some of the way that open world games are now made these days.
mhm. Yeah.
But that's a good one. I mean, I've got to admit though, I personally found Mercs 2 terrible though.
Really?
I don't know. I think that was more a case of that I played the first one on PS2, and the concept behind having to go for the cards and things like that was great, and it was kind of unique at the time. And with Mercs 2, for me, they didn't really build upon that. It was kind of, no, let's just go, let you blow everybody up and destroy everything and stuff. And unfortunately, I found it got a bit repetitive after a while.
Yeah. Huh.
So, but yeah, no, that intrigues me that you picked that one out, because that's probably one of the first. It was one of the first games out on PS3. After we had the sort of initial launch titles, and then there was a quiet period when it started picking up again. That Mercs 2 came out, and obviously a lot of people picked that up, but I hadn't even really thought about that.
Yeah. What about some of the family games? What do you think of those? You played any of those,
Well,
Family Game
one.
Night, Hasbro Family Game Night, those kind of
I
things?
haven't really played the Hasbro ones. I don't know if I would consider Buzz to be a guilty pleasure, because the Buzz games are always great. And, I don't care what age you are, you're always, if you're going to sit down with a Buzz game, you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, I wonder, like, how they tout like party games and things like that, and I don't really know that, like, maybe my age group is maybe the problem, but like, I don't have friends over and like, hey, let's play, some party game on the PS3.
Well, I've got to be honest. If I didn't live with my mum and dad, I'd totally do that.
Would you?
Yeah, I'd have people.
Well, I mean, you're a lot younger than I am, but the thing
much.
is, like, I'll play with, like, friends of mine will play Call of Duty and things like that, and a lot of shooters. But at the same time, I can't see, like, hey, come over, bring your wife or girlfriend, and, like, let's play some party game, because I don't know, the PS3 for me never really settled in that. But at the same breath, I would say, like, family-wise, like, having games. It's hard to explain it. Having 5 children, if you have board games around, you're just, oh my gosh. Like, we have board games that are like pieces are missing, or like, you break out Monopoly and it's got like a Star Wars action figure is like what my son chooses as his character, his little icon thing, or whatever, to move around the board, and you're just like, well, that probably didn't come with the set, and where's the dice, and all these other things, or what's the rules. Whereas, like, if you popped in a PS3 game to play, a family game like that, it's all structured on there. The game will roll the dice for you, like all the things like that. It makes it a lot easier, and it's more convenient. It's more of a it fits better with that mentality. So I guess if you were doing party games, it would probably work really well. But
maybe that's a regional thing, because I know Sony have been quite open about the fact that they haven't had greater success with family-based titles in other countries, but in Europe they sell bucket loads. I think the original SingStar sold about 8 million copies throughout Europe when it first launched. And yet it doesn't do those sorts of numbers in the States. And Sony have sort of cottoned on to that by tacking on the SingStar X and B icon onto the thing, so that now whichever region you're in, it's kind of in your face to remind you a little bit that game even exists. But I mean, here in Europe, we're kind of a little bit more open-minded to that, and we do things like that. I mean, there's often nights where I've been around my sisters, for example, when the kids have gone away and we've all, got some beers out and stuff, and had friends come round, and we jump on the SingStar. But there's also other games that we've done as well. We've done the Buzz thing. We played what was it, Sofa versus Sofa against some people I know in Australia when we did that, and we were chatting to them afterwards and having a laugh with it. So even the online multiplayer can come into effect with that. But what was the other thing that
makes me wonder? That makes me wonder if, like, what percentage of, like, country by country, how much of the U.S. is people buying it for personal gaming versus buying it for family gaming or party gaming, compared to other countries? Like, do you think, like, in UK, there's a lot more people that are sharing the game system with their family?
I think so, yeah.
Interesting.
I think that's certainly the case, because of the way it's kind of advertised here. You don't tend to see a lot of advertisements that are only for AAA games, but you do see some big advertisements for games right across the board that appeal to people of all ages. And to be honest with you, a majority of the family games, based games that come out, certainly from Sony's first party studios, are all developed in the UK in the first place. You look at Studio London, who are responsible for the SingStar and iPet series. Obviously you've got Media Molecule, which essentially created a Little Big Planet. Now Little Big Planet's the one obviously that's had the success in that respect, more so than perhaps SingStar and iPet. But it's a UK mentality thing. We know that gaming's a big thing. We know that the PS3 is capable of doing lots of non-gaming related things, but we also have to make sure, from Sony's perspective, they have to make sure that it can appeal to all ages.
Mm-hmm.
And they do that very successfully in this country. I'm not so sure about,
Well, I think we're a little more prevalent on Microsoft and Xbox and stuff in the United States,
Yeah.
which, and from my perspective, from the people that I know, I don't think the Xbox has as much of a family gaming vibe to it for people. Like the people that I know that have Xbox, it's all like, shooter this. Even
Gears of
my
War and
son's kid, yeah,
Halo. Yeah.
exactly. They're not like, hey, I can go get, Wonder Book and do a wand. It's nothing like that. Whereas like the PS3 is a lot more, I don't know, like with home and stuff like that, and I mean I don't know, it already seems more family, social, and everything like that, in my eyes.
No, absolutely. I'd agree with everything you just said there. Even when you just have a general conversation with anybody that owns an Xbox, you very rarely hear them ever spout off about any family fun or guilty pleasure titles, I guess we should say, because it's obviously the nature of the show. But
Yeah. Gears of
you
War,
rarely
Halo,
hear them
Call of Duty.
speak about exactly. It's the usual Gears, Halo, Call of Duty, and maybe even Fable, perhaps. And that's about it. And it's kind of like, well, you know, we get that you should play those games, but come on, I mean, wouldn't it be great to have a library of guilty pleasures if you're an Xbox owner, like we luckily have on as PlayStation owners? We've got such a vast array of games across so many different genres. It's
Now, do you
it's
think
brilliant.
the indie support for indie games by Sony is a large drive for that? Do you think? I mean,
Well, I mean,
obviously they seem to be much more friendly towards independent developers. They don't make you commit to their console. They've done a lot of things that show that they just want to take any new creative idea and
yeah,
run with it.
and it pays off. There's some indie developers that have actually created some family-friendly PSN type games. I mean, one, for example, is called Lights Camera Party, which is a party game, which puts you in the films and stuff like that. There was another one which was Kung Fu Live, where it just used the camera and it would give you like kung fu positions to do and things like that, and you just need your PSI camera and that was it. And that came from an indie developer.
Put your elbow through your big screen TV.
Yeah, of course you'd have to be extremely careful for that, but yeah. So it sort of swings in roundabouts, because while Sony invest in the indie community, the indie community realise that there's obviously a lot of genres that Sony cover to be able to, and they know that Sony loves to be able to have that variety as well. I think that's the key thing with it. If there's for example, if an indie developer has an idea for a fun pinball game, but sees there's 30 odd other pinball games on the thing, they're still going to go ahead and do it, because they know they will get the backing from Sony, and they know that they may be able to do something or fill a gap that one of the other 30 haven't done. And you don't find that so much with Microsoft. It's more a case of cookie cutter. It's like, what can we do? It's like, how can we copy that person's success? You see what I mean? As opposed to, how can we take that person's success and make it our own with our own ideals?
Yeah. How about is there any games that you would say you're disappointed with that you tried? Maybe you're like, oh, stay away from this, isn't a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, there's a couple I can think of off the top
You've
of my head.
you've probably bought something expecting it to be one way, and
yeah, Damnation was probably the most criminal.
Oh, that game.
I know. But the thing was, I'd followed the developer diaries with it for like a solid year. And I was like really behind the concept of the game, and the whole steampunk thing, and the fact that we might have actually got a steampunk game that actually delivered. Because again, up until that point, we didn't really have a lot of steampunk games, and so the concept behind it was great. And I got into this steampunk Wild West theme wouldn't it be great? It's going to be a fantastic game. The game's looking great from the videos that I've seen, and then I go and buy it. I get home, I stick it in, and within the first 30 minutes it crashes on me twice. And so then I think, okay, I'm sure they'll patch that, they'll fix it or whatever. I'll just keep soldiering through. And then I got on the motorbike within the steampunk motorbike within the game. I crashed into the wall. Then my bike is then stuck upside down, stuck in the wall, and I can't get back on it. And then about 6 hours into it, I was just like, this game just feels awful.
Unfinished, broken.
The dialogue's terrible. The story's poorly executed. I mean, where did the Navajo Indian bit come into it? I don't even see how that was relevant. So, Damnation is probably the worst one that I've played. But, I mean, there have been some other ones that I felt disappointed in. I think the most recent one, for me, surprisingly, was Little Big Planet on the PS Vita. Just felt like a carbon copy of the console games, and that
well, and it's hard too, if they're trying to bring it to a handheld, you wonder, like, do they have the duty to make it like what people are expecting? Because then there's those people that are probably like, they changed it, that pisses me off, I wanted it to be exactly the same, and I wanted to have it on my portable,
Well, essentially,
Sketch 22 for them when they're making a game that's already been released on something else. And
essentially for me, it was that it was essentially just a port with touchscreen controls. The designer level things were supposed to be intuitive with the touchscreen. Didn't feel like that at all. The online barely worked. Downloading levels and stuff and playing levels online with other people, the online was just completely broken from day one, and for me that was just a huge disappointment.
So maybe it would be good if they said, hey, this is just a port over or something like that. And
it would have been good if they just hadn't released it and actually, because I don't think it was actually developed by Media Molecule. I think it was actually done by one of the Sony subsidiary things. It wasn't actually a Media Molecule game, and it kind of shows really. But that's probably been my biggest disappointment of recent times.
When something's truly ported over, if people understand how that actually works, it's usually more times than not it's a risky proposition, because when you're taking something and converting it to another system and you're not really changing or updating it to work on that system, a lot of times you're going to lose quality, you're going to lose stuff, you're going to have to cut out parts of the story or functionality that doesn't work.
Yeah, but this was supposedly built from the ground up. That's what annoys me about it. How can you build a game from the ground up and then still only make it so it's like a port?
Yeah.
They
should just have some kind of indication when something's ported, when it's actually ported. I should just say that on the box. This was ported from this.
I mean, there are some good ports. I mean, on the Vita, Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, it's fantastic. It just works.
Well, I'm sure we're going to talk about this more when it comes to like the PS4 and the next, Xbox, because we talked about this before with, like, if you take a version of a console that's less powerful than the other one and you create it on that one first and then you port it over, you're going to end up with lower quality every time.
Yeah, but you can't. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, if you're talking about like a Sony first-party title being ported onto the Vita, you can't expect it to be a little bit lower quality. But when you're talking between two manufacturers' machines that in some respects are almost as powerful as each other, one trumps the other in certain areas and vice versa, you still expect them to be consistent, and quite a lot of
do you? I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, in some areas they're going to be stronger, in other areas they're not. They're going to be different. In either case, they're not going to line up 100%.
Okay, but in case in point, then you could take the example of, say, Bayonetta. That game was the lead console on it was PS3. Not Xbox, but they had to essentially make a lot of compromises to bring it onto the Xbox 360, and as a result, the Xbox 360 got a better version, and the PS3 one, which was a lead version, suffered from a lot of frame rate issues. You know, I just think that's bad development, really. I don't necessarily think it's a case of they couldn't have made them equal. I just think that developers do tend to get a little bit lazy with it and say, well, let's use the Xbox 360 one. It's the one we know the architecture of the most. So we're going to do that, and then, you know, we'll start porting it later on once we've built the framework. And really, the best ports tend to be the ones that are built at the same time, simultaneously. You know, those kinds of games that are ported on both built for both machines, tend to be done at the same time. Whereas, you know, take for example Final Fantasy 13, for example, could have probably been, you know, a little bit better. But, you know, it was delayed for a year so they could port it onto the 360, and I question whether or not the 360 version, you know, for owners of the 360 version, of whether they got the best possible port or not. Yeah. You know, everybody knew it was a port, but look at it from this way. Why didn't they just build the games together at the same time in the first place? Because then they would have been of equal standing. And it tends to be the case with a lot of those.
Well, it's hard to answer for what they've got in the way of resources and all that with a company. But I always thought there should be some kind of almost like a governing body, either within Sony or Microsoft, where they determine that a game is ready to be released. In other words, like having a game that's broken, where you can't even play it, and it still goes on the market. That shouldn't happen in today's society. You're really talking about something that, like, you know, if anything else is broken, what happens? People take it back. Well, then there's an expectation in video games. You can't really do that. You couldn't go back to your game store and say, hey, this doesn't work. I can't finish it. Where's my money?
I was going to say that's a topic for another day, because the Sony Q&A process is beyond my wildest imaginations of how that actually works, because the simple thing with Q&A should be, if the game's broken, you can't pass it through Q&A, so don't release it yet. There's a lot of games where, and certainly examples with interviews of developers of, you know, PSN games, where the PSN game has been delayed by Sony's Q&A process, but there's been nothing wrong with it except, say, a logo's missing or something. Whereas other times there are games that somehow pass Q&A but are completely broken and require several patches before they even work. And, you know, in fairness to Sony Q&A, they don't actually Q&A retail titles, and I think that's the same with Xbox as well. They don't Q&A retail games, only digital. And they should really be Q&Aing retail games as well. But that's something we should probably save for a whole different show, because we could go on about that for days.
But, okay, fair enough. So I want to talk about one I had a little challenge with. I bought Deadliest Catch, Sea of Chaos. You ever hear about that one?
I vaguely remember you saying
it's based on a reality show in the U.S. Where crab fishermen go out, you know, in the dead of winter, and they catch crabs. It's a very dangerous job, real high rate of people being washed over the side and boats sinking and things like that.
Didn't you write a guide for it?
Yeah, actually, I wrote a guide for it. In that game, like, I bought it thinking, well, you know, it could be interesting and see the ships and the characters and things like that, and it's one to stay away from because it doesn't have a platinum. It's a disc game. I didn't look into that before I bought it. You know, it's got its trophies and everything, and it's just repetitive. It's like this very simple game. It really should have been like a $5 PSN game, and I think it was like a $25 disc or something like that, maybe even $30. It was quite significant price for the game. It was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. And I've done that a few times where I just thought, oh, why did I buy this? But, you know, speaking of positive guilty pleasures, though, you know, there is one that comes to mind, because I had no intention of buying this game, which is Mag. You know, I'd seen some of the developer diaries. I knew it was 256 players online, but I'd seen the graphics of it, and I was just like, nah, I don't want to do this. I don't want to buy it. And my buddies persuaded me to, to pick it up on launch day. So off I went down to the shop, picked it up, come back that morning and fired it up. And it shows you how much of it... I still love the game now, even though there isn't a lot of players on there. But the ethos of the game in terms of squadmanship and being able to communicate with people, it just got so many great ideas in it that, it surprises me that we may not even see a sequel to it or any further info on it. But, MAG was that much of a guilty pleasure that I loved playing it so much that I actually stuck 470 hours into it. And I think for me, that's probably certainly my ultimate guilty pleasure this generation, because, I'm sure if you stuck it on now, some people would go, oh, this game looks terrible. But actually, it wasn't the graphics that sold me on it. It was the whole dynamic of gameplay of, every time you fire up the game and go into a match, it was always played something. The game always played out differently. It was always unique with the different matches. Let me ask you this question though, while we're talking to guilty pleasures and stuff. Can you think of any franchises, like series of games that you love, but not what we'd necessarily consider popular?
You know what? Yeah, there's my kids play a lot of like the Lego and stuff like that, and honestly, those are pretty relaxing. They're pretty like easy to play. They're kids games. I haven't really gone for any platinums in them or anything like that, but you could very easily play through the Lego series and play, get a ton of platinums if I were inclined to, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So.
But I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily think that's a guilty pleasure though, because like a lot of people, older and younger, enjoy
the thing is too,
Lego
like
games.
I mention to people like I play games because my kids have played them, and they'll play on my account and not know it. They'll log in and they get a trophy. I probably even have a couple Lego games unlocked and stuff on there, but my intention isn't to get the trophies in them until like I get on there and it's like, oh, he's unlocked it, I might as well finish this game.
Yeah.
And the other thing is like, like I don't want to take those away from them. So like if I have a copy and like they're playing it, it's like, oh, I could very easily get a platinum in that. And if I start taking, Lego Batman and playing it in mine, guess what my kids are going to want to play? So it's kind of a guilty pleasure of theirs where they enjoy it, and I wouldn't want to take that away and like, for trophy reasons and stuff. So.
Yeah. Just borrow
it
and borrow it for like a week or so while you get the platinum.
Dad, I want to play Lego Batman. No,
I've
got a platinum to earn.
Yeah.
Go play Call of Duty.
I'm just trying to think of game series that I've liked this generation. Well, certainly this generation. I probably think one of my guilty pleasures is probably the Yakuza games. Yakuza 3, 4, and Dead Cells.
I played, I liked the Back to the Future series, the PSN games. Those were really cool. I was a big fan of that movie. My family is, the whole going through time and the DeLorean, all that stuff.
Who doesn't love them? Come on.
So that was kind of cool. Even though it was more, like I would wish there was more, less decision-affected things and a little bit more action in there.
Yeah.
Would have made that a little bit more interesting if they would have combined both. But then kids probably would have been like, oh,
I tell you what I am a sucker for, though. Marvel games. Anything that's got Marvel in it, I will pick up that game.
Oh, yeah. Captain America was a great game. I played that one.
Captain America had a lot of promise with it. It wasn't great in execution, but even though I knew it was going to be not the greatest game in the world, I still wanted to play it.
I've played some of the older superhero games, and they're always very... I don't know, like you play like the Iron Man where he's flying and stuff, and it's just so hard to control, and so it's almost like
Well, see, this is what I mean about Marvel games and picking them up as guilty pleasures. I mean, I've done Captain America, I've done the 2 Iron Man games, and probably will do the 3rd one if they release an Iron Man 3 game to go with the new movie. I've done Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Marvel Superhero Squad. X-Men Destiny. I've got the X-Men PSN game. Yeah,
And they
so
can
I've
be
got quite a
they're
few.
coming along. They're getting there because
Yeah,
originally, if you remember the old superhero games, they were
yeah,
subpar. Like go back in time. The superhero
yeah,
games have clearly come a long way. I think Captain America was the first time I recognized where it's like, hey, they've actually got some controls in here and some actions, and it's not the
yeah.
same stagnant thing.
Yeah, and they really thought about the combat with that as well,
Yeah, they
didn't
thought
they?
about the combat, the
Um,
enemies.
they tried to make it a bit like Batman, unfortunately. But I don't know. It was kind of fun though. But it was
Because
interesting to
before,
see
I
that
mean,
they.
picture you go back like, go back a few years, and it would be like he'd be able to punch and maybe bash with his shield or something.
Yeah,
And then they took it to the level of like he's doing flips and throwing his shield and hitting it off multiple people and he's blocking bullets and he's, you know what I mean, like all these things. That's
I,
cool stuff right there.
I think they still need to get up to the level of standard games that they're still not quite there. But I mean, as you say, Captain America had a lot of good going for it. Again, some issues with execution on that, but could have been there. Wolverine X-Men Origins is usually the one that I hear a lot of people say they loved. I mean, I liked it, and they
Hmm.
did a really good job with that, but it just still wasn't quite
I
at
played
that
some of that too. Yeah.
triple A status, where people are starting to get really excited for that game. In fact, IDP wrote a news article this week, which I definitely recommend checking out because they seem to be getting to improving their quality to the point of where they are going to be when you get a superhero game, it will now be classed as a AAA title. So the upcoming Deadpool game, developed by High Moon Studios that have done a fantastic job on the recent Transformer games, are looking great with that Deadpool one.
Hmm.
And, that's going to be probably my next guilty pleasure. I am going to pick that up. Because as I say, I'm just sucker for Marvel games. It doesn't matter if they're good, bad, ugly, or whatever. I will pick up and I will play a Marvel game. My mission is to get like a platinum in every Marvel game possible at some point. And that for me is a real guilty pleasure because it sort of stems from my fascination with Marvel comics. So um, let me ask you this then. Again, as we talk about guilty pleasures, is there been any sort of like merchandise or memorabilia that you've been inclined to pick up, or you thought, I love that horrible game so much, I'm going to go buy a poster of it?
No, I've gotten a few things like that. Through necessity, I had the challenge with buying the Call of Duty, and I had to upgrade and buy something that I later sold for a lot more than I paid for it,
Hmm.
due to a local GameStop manager argument that ensued. Not holding my game like they said. I've had a few other things where I've gotten posters. I used to get like it's funny you mentioned this. I used to manage a video store back when they were VHS tapes, and I used to get given all that stuff by like all the games and stuff that we sold or rented. Just tons of posters, tons of stand-ups and display things and all that stuff. I still do. I have a collection of it. Nintendo posters, for example. I have all the old Nintendo posters from probably just about every game you can imagine.
God, you could probably sell them for a fortune,
Maybe. But the thing here is like, I don't actively go to collect that stuff.
Hmm.
You know, I was intrigued a little bit by the Fallout and the bobbleheads
Yeah.
and things like that. I almost bid on that, but I don't know. I mean,
Well,
few
I'm
games
a
hold my
sucker
interest
for
long term, I would guess.
I'm a sucker for games that come with figures. Like,
Hmm.
I'm desperately gutted that money's an issue at the moment. I can't get the God of War collector's edition with the Kratos statue. I'm hoping there'll be some available in a couple of months, but I'm a sucker for those kind of things. But that in terms of collecting those things are kind of normal. But I will let you in on guilty pleasure. So Pokemon, right? Back in the day, I used to play that on Game Boy,
Okay.
and I actually have a collection of some of the Beanie Baby Pokemons that
Huh.
I picked up. So I've got things like a Meow, a Snorlax, a Jigglypuff, a Pikachu, a Charizard.
I don't recognize any of those.
Yeah, well, anybody listening in is probably just laughing at me now because they'll be like, "Oh no, I recognise those. What a geek that he's got Beanie Babies of them." But yeah, I collected those for a little bit, and I also I know I'm getting on a bit, but I still do it. If there's a cuddly toy of a game franchise hero, I will pick it up. So at the moment, I have a 3-foot Spyro, the dragon, and I actually have a Crash Bandicoot as well. Now that really is a guilty pleasure because I know I shouldn't buy those things, and I know they are kind of a little bit lame, especially given the fact that I am older. But I don't know, I just can't help picking those things up. Really, I'm just like, oh, it's so cute, I must have it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a sucker for those kind of things more than the statues. So
I think if anything, if I was to look back, if there's something that I've really wanted gaming related, in all honesty, I would think that like I'd like to finish my man cave in the basement. I've got my basement framed out for putting some extra bedrooms and stuff down there and a little man cave, and I've always wanted to get an arcade cabinet or two.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, if money not being an object, not being a challenge, having any kind of gaming related stuff, I would really go buy some of my favorite stand-up arcade games, going back into the 80s, and just I mean, I know they're big, unnecessary to play on it, but it's a different feel. It's nostalgia. It's it's inviting to, like, when you do have parties and stuff like that, to hang out there and drink at a bar and like, oh, hey.
Now, here's a question for you. If you did get one of those arcade cabinets, would you turn it off so that you don't have to put coins in there, or would you make people pay?
I probably wouldn't make people pay, but I probably would leave it so it's quarters, so it had that feel.
Yeah.
I would love the idea of having like a wet bar down there, like Galaga, Pac-Man, something like those, and then having like a pizza oven or something too.
Yeah.
If you put all those things together, dude, I would live down there. You would never see me. Big screen TV.
Pop out once a month for some fresh air or something.
Send food.
Stock up. Yeah, now I've got to be honest, I'd do a similar thing, but I'd also have like showcase cabinets, for like figurines and things like that to display them, because I do get a lot of joy out of collecting figurines, and you sort of look at them and you think, they're pretty cool. I know a couple of people that actually take that one step further and actually create, mold and paint them. I don't think I'm quite at that stage, but that'd be pretty cool to take that one step further and do that kind of thing, and be able to display them all off in a, as you say, nice game. Then.
I think people that are into gaming often have a lot of different history. Like I never collected any action figures or anything like that, but at the same time, like, I have a comic collection, or there were other things like that I was involved in with, like, I've always loved Marvel. So like, it wouldn't be directly gaming related, but I could see collecting, Marvel related stuff other than comics and putting it up. That would be cool. I would love to do that, but
well, I tell you, as I say, if you're a Marvel fan, go check out Ultimate Alliance 2, because that's all to do with the Civil War thing, and it's an RPG as well. So I know that's right up your street.
I'm kind of out of touch with it, though. And to be honest with you, like, nowadays, the Marvel universe has been through so many, variations. It's hard to keep up. My kids, it's funny, we'll go see a Marvel movie or something like that, and they'll be like, so what's the history of this character, kind of thing, like, or how did he get his powers, is the way they'll ask it. And it's kind of like, well, it's one of 15 versions.
Yeah, but if
he was born with it, he was bitten by a radioactive spider, or it's like all this stuff.
If you wanted to, and this is something I'd suggest, Marvel actually do an encyclopedia of the universes.
Oh yeah, I know.
Where each one's numbered and so on like that. But the movies in some respects have done a great job because they're all pre-Civil War stuff. I imagine at some point we'll probably see a Marvel movie that covers the Civil War.
Well, if you can think it up, it's probably been done, because Marvel's done where they've killed off, in alternate universes have killed off like every character you can imagine.
Yeah.
DC's done the same. You go back, there was times when Superman's ghost was what you were seeing in the comic. Let's face it, these things they're hard to keep up with, and people follow different ideas in their head of like what's the true universe, and then you got these directors reimagine the story for the next movie. So I don't know. I don't have the inclination to follow it. I think I try to like interact with my kids as much as possible, and it often turns into this. Well, when I was a kid, this is how Spider-Man came about.
When I was young, lad.
He wasn't born with his powers.
We've talked about some guilty pleasures. Majority of them, obviously, this gen. But thinking, let's go back a little bit further and go into the PS2 eras. Is there any sort of PS2 games, for example, you can kind of think of that you would class as a guilty pleasure? Or,
we were talking about this. We were talking about this, I think, recently. I don't know if we were on the PodStation or not with it, but Bully.
Yeah. Canis Canum Edit for those in the UK.
Okay.
Yeah, for some reason they weren't allowed to call it Bully in the UK, so they had to call it Canis Canum Edit. Yeah, go figure.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not even going to go
Latin.
there. But Bully, yeah, that was a damn fun game. I don't know. I can't explain that one either, really. It was very engrossing because it was like it was so many different things, and it was just the whole concept of like you could be skateboarding and like all this other stuff and sneaking around, and plus I think if you look through the history of games too, there's something intriguing about games that let you do something a little bit different, and in this case it was let me just be like a bad kid for a while. It's the same with GTA. I think one of the things about GTA is I really don't think people play it to always play the story. They'll pop it in because it's like, I'm going to go around and shoot all these cops and stuff and blow buildings up and, run over, prostitutes. And, it's not that we're bad people, but it's like sometimes it's good to just do that, to cut loose. It's not about the game. It's not about anything. It's just let's explore and see what kind of things you can get away with, and how many flips can you get on this car. It's not how far I can jump for some trophy. It's like I'm just going to wreck this bad boy up as fast as I can.
Yeah, I do remember when GTA 4 came out. One of my work colleagues at the time, we used to just sit up to like 2 o'clock in the morning just racing motorbikes up and down the airstrip and trying to see how far we could actually fly them out to sea.
Mm-hmm.
With the what I'm talking about, with the ramps at the end of the airstrip. And
you just where you see if you can
buy the motorcycle out, and it's just like
how far the airplane will drag your car down the runway, and yeah, hit those little ramps and see how many flips you can do in the air.
Yeah.
But see, I mean, it's not something that's part of the main part of the game, and Bully was different in that regard, because it was like, it's the goal is to be like a bad kid. It's like kind of like what kind of bad things are they going to put in this game? So you're like playing it to like figure it out, to see that creative, naughty side of things without, it's everything's with video games. It's a fantasy. It's some kind of thing, and you want to get involved in it.
It's funny that because Rockstar did do a lot of that on PS2. It wasn't just Bully. I mean, Gun, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Put you as the bad. This is pre-Red Dead Redemption days, but Gun put you in the seat of a bad boy cowboy. And at that point, again, another sort of franchise that another sort of theme genre type setting that's come out in this generation and blossomed, but it wouldn't, if it hadn't been for games like Gun and stuff, and that wouldn't have necessarily happened.
Mm-hmm.
games like Gun and Bully doing something different. I'm just trying to think of some of my favourite PS2 games that would be classed as guilty pleasure. I was always a sucker for I guess the Dynasty Warriors style games, and one of the first ones that I had was Kessen, and Kessen 2. The big epic, repetitive hack and slash.
Sounds familiar, but I can't really picture it in my head what those games were.
Yeah.
But.
Well, it was kind of like what Dynasty Warriors is now.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned PS2 because I mean, think about it. Back then, that was pre-trophies as well. So, like, if you were playing a game a lot, it was because you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You weren't trophy hunting. Yeah. And it's interesting. I remember 50 Quid just wrote recently in one of the threads that we were discussing about completionism, and he mentioned about how he used to completely beat games anyway. I used to do the same thing. Did you do that?
I did and I didn't, if that makes sense.
Wow.
I would complete games 100%, but then I was kind of like I would still go back and play them every now and again.
Oh, okay. Well, you were beating them. You were a completionist then in that sense, and I think that's interesting, and I think he's dead on right because, I was a completionist with my PS2 games. I played every single one of them all the way through the story. Sometimes, if you could play in a different mode, I'd play that all the way through the story again.
But I mean, I wasn't even at that time. I wasn't fanatical. It'd be a case of if I wasn't necessarily bothered about getting 100%, and I'm still very much the same these days. I'm not completely bothered if I get 100% on something or not, as long as I've played it enough to enjoy it, and to a certain degree, this.
Yeah, I think that's it. You're hitting it right there. You want to satisfy that you've played it and got your money out of it.
Yeah,
at least that's what it is for me. Like, I feel like if I've played it all the way through, then I've gotten my value's worth.
And in some respects, a platinum trophy these days is kind of an indication of that. Mm-hmm. That's saying, well, you've played it enough. You've got your platinum trophy. You can still play more if you want. Yeah. But I'm always of the opinion that if you try to do everything 100%, that's an admirable goal, and you shouldn't not do that. But I would question whether or not that's actually a good thing, or if it's more OCD than anything. Because
it's probably killing people's guilty pleasures to pursue.
Well, that's what I mean. At the end of the day, if you're focused on getting one thing to 100%, regardless of the cost, be it DLC or so on like that,
time,
and the time aspect. I mean, how much, what else are you missing out? Because you will, by the nature of it, you will end up missing out on so much stuff in between.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a shame, because there are, as you say, and this is kind of one of the other reasons that that this is a great topic to sort of address this week, because you will miss out on those guilty pleasures, the games that you sort of when you're shopping around in town in your local game store, time's not an issue. You're just browsing through the categories. You see something you don't recognise or you've never heard of before. It's $10, 10 quid or whatever. You pick it up, you take it home, and you go and have a blast with it. And it becomes one of those games that you love. And we've seen that happen in the PS2 era a lot more than perhaps we're seeing.
Well, now you probably have a different approach on it. Let's try to. Let's put this in a way maybe we can help some of the people that are looking for games, or maybe they're not looking for games. And just say that let's encourage people to look through the PlayStation Store and then truly ask themselves, does this game look fun to me, or do I immediately go and see like how many trophies it has and what's the trophy difficulty? Because if your mentality is that, then you probably clearly know in your own mind that you're not you're trophy hunting with that OCD in mind.
Yeah.
Versus like having fun with gaming. And that's where I came to that conclusion lately, like, that I was I want to focus more on like things that are fun for me and that I want to play. And it's the same thing, I've been playing games and stuff like that are I've gotten to the point where I'm just almost completely forget about trophies.
Yeah.
I've got games that I've been playing, and I've played them a lot. I've played them for a long time, and I've not looked at the trophy list, and that's cool because then I just enjoy them to enjoy them.
Well, I mean, I've been doing that with games quite recently, you know, and have been where the first thing I will do when I play a game now is I don't care about the trophies. I will play the game through the campaign. And once I beat that campaign, that's when I start thinking about trophies and thinking, well, do I want to go for it? Can I invest the time? Do I really want this bad enough? And, you know, quite often it turns out to be a yes, as it is most recently with the frustrating requirements to do the Tomb Raider multiplayer stuff. But at the same time, you know, I could walk away from it now if I didn't want if I really didn't want to get it, but it's such a fantastic game that I'd like to have that on my checklist of games and say, you know, I beat that all the way through and I'm happy with that. But, you know, as you say, you stick the game in, you play it through, and then trophies should always be, you know, in some respect an afterthought than the reason you buy a game.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it's sad that we're at that point where people will make a decision buying a game based on trophies and whether or not you'll have DLC. Because I know DLC is also a turn-off for a number of people as well. People are like, well, you know, if it's going to have DLC, why should I buy it? And it should never be about that, because DLC is always an optional thing. You know, if you're really concerned about getting 100% on the game, then
you know, and Sony could help there without, like, if you don't buy the DLC, like your percentage not dropping. That would be nice. Or my other old favorite standby, if you could delete games, you know, that would help too. Like if you had one trophy unlocked, you know, and just be able to just nuke that, you know, it would give a lot more peace of mind, and it would give more credence to the fact of Sony caring about trophy hunters, because, you know, who wants to go and like have some test account? For one, having another account would be against Sony's, you know, terms of service technically. Having another account and you test a game and see, well, is, you know, this, and you got to research, it's like, is a trophy even unlockable? Is the server still up? Is it glitched?
Well, I think we're about 3.5 years into the implementation of the trophy system, something like about 3.5, 4 years, and I don't think it's ever really been a thought for Sony. And I think part and parcel of that is we could cite a number of issues. Obviously, is making sure that they, you know, throw games out there left, right and centre and do what they're doing, and, you know, that's paid off. But also the competition side of things, they've had to think about, you know, what Nintendo or Xbox are doing, so they haven't, I would probably make the case and point, they probably haven't just had the resources or the thinking that they would have had in the past to come to smaller issues like that. I mean, even just look at firmware updates, for example, on the PS3, they're few and far between now. I can't even remember the last time we actually had a PS3 firmware update because there's so many other things going on that Sony are doing to try and make the PS3 successful. Now, I'm not saying, you know, that's a valid excuse, but at the same time, I can still understand it. And, you know, for Sony, trophies is still relatively a young system. I imagine as we go forward, and, you know, a lot of these issues will still crop up again, that you'll probably see some revamp or overhaul of the system. But maybe, you know, I don't think they're too worried about the current system at the moment, because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, do you worry about the trophies or do you worry about staying in business, which is the priority? You know.
Yeah. Well, you know, they got a little bit better system available already, and in terms of being better thought out.
But yeah, I mean,
but I don't know. It's one of those things, like, you know, we talked about this before. Are we a niche? Are trophy hunters a niche, or are we a big enough part of it where we'll get some attention at some point? Where they'll say, hey, you know, we want people to be able to edit and delete stuff. That's less storage for us. You know, that kind of stuff.
No, I still think we're, you know, as I say, you've got to, you know, put it in perspective that every game past 2008 has trophies. You know, that's fact as such. You know, there's 90 odd million PSN accounts. You know, PS3 sales are 77 million roughly at the moment. You know, and trophy communities like us, tapping into those community of people that are really interested in it. But I would argue that while the majority of people probably don't necessarily, the majority of the 90 million active PSN accounts wouldn't necessarily care. I think if something drastic happened to the whole system, I think then you would find they would care. I mean, just look at when PSN went down for it was about a month and a half.
Well, I would venture to say that
how many of those people were trophy hunters actually complaining, and how many
I would
of those
venture to say if they were to look into it,
suddenly cared.
No. Picture if they're to look into it, I would bet that probably your serious trophy hunters are probably more likely to be better behaved in terms of things, their behavior in interacting with online multiplayer. At least when they have higher trophy counts, they probably are less likely to be causing problems. I would say that they're also probably responsible for multiple accounts, probably more than anybody else. When you get something and you got a problem and Sony says, well, I can't fix that, or we don't care about deleting some error thing in your trophies, that's what causes people to say, well, screw it, I'll just go create a different account name, and
But okay, let me ask you this question then. Sort of looking at this from Trophies' perspective and stuff, do you think then, in that respect, that back in the PS2 days, I would argue that a majority of people who bought games, had a lot of guilty pleasures, games that weren't big, that people bought, got into, purely because they were readily available. Do you think it was more fun back then than it is now? Because
I think it is for I think for trophy hunters, yes. For trophy hunters, yes. I would say they probably open up a little bit more. Honestly, open up a little bit more of the market if you're able to delete, and they truly understand that the trophy hunting mentality, and you were able to delete if you had trophies on there and you wanted to remove a game completely, I bet they would get more people trying games. They would get more people buying some of these smaller titles, because it's like, hey, I can buy this and make some quick trophies, or how many times have I done that, and like, well, I got screwed for I got some trophy pop, and now I've got this on there, and I find out one of the trophies is unobtainable, or it takes 100 hours, and then people
looking at it from another perspective, I mean, I will still make this case and point, as we've said over the discussion of the topic, that I haven't really changed the way I play that much. So what I can't understand is that if people were like me back in the PS2 days, and obviously you've got this now trophy system come into place, what I don't understand is why something as simple as a trophy has somehow managed to change people's mentality or way of thinking about it, in the fact that it's caused them to actually change their habits.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because games are a competition. When you're playing a game, you're competing against the game. You're competing against yourself in a way. And then with multiplayer and trophies, you're competing against others. So it's a measuring stick.
Yeah. Well, see, I don't think that way. I bet there's odd occasions where I'll look at the stats and I'll go, oh, I'm 16th in the UK, great. That's kind of cool to know, but is it going to affect how I play? Not really. I'm still if I get stuck into a meaty campaign like I did with the Tomb Raider game, I'm still going to play it through 10 hours solid. And I would have done that in the past anyway. That's what I'm trying to understand a little bit more of, because, as I say, each to their own. I'm not going to... I want to make it clear, I'm not saying to people that you have an issue if you want to do the 100% completion thing. By all means do. If that's what keeps you happy and that's where you get your fun from, you're getting your completion, you're buying all the DLC, who am I to say that you're wrong to do that? But at the same time, I just want those people to also be aware that you have changed your gaming habits from what you may have done in the past, because you may be missing out, as I say, on these great, fantastic titles that don't necessarily get the sales or the encouragement that they should do. And part and parcel of that is because completionists in some respect would rather invest that money in DLC.
Yeah, well, I mean,
the time and stuff. And I mean, come on, there are some great, terrible games out there. I mean, and there's some other games, that are relatively good that just don't get the exposure. I mean, you can look at things like Suda51 and Grasshopper Games for some of the games they do out there. I mean, back in the days of PS2, you had Killer 7, which was a fantastic game, sold relatively well. But would it sell well now these days? I don't think so, because people are too busy focusing in some respect on a completionist or trying to beat one game so they can.
Well, that's why I say if you were able to have more choices, put yourself now you're a completionist. You're able to have the choice of deleting anything. If you earn a few trophies on something and you want to delete it, you can. And you look on the store and there's all these demos available, for example. Now, do you have to research them and look and see how hard these trophies are and all this other stuff? Or do you just I'll download these 10 demos, I'll see if I like these games, and there's more of a chance there that you're going to catch on to something that you like. Because even a demo could pop a trophy. I hate to say that, but even a demo could pop a trophy. And then, the whole thing is if you're able in a couple seconds to just nuke that and go, oh, that sucks, it's got a trophy, and, well, I realize I hate it, delete. Is that a choice, and is that more inviting to a trophy hunter or a completionist to experiment and try these other things than the other alternative of now I've got these 10 games, but I have to go research them and see before I put them on my system and accidentally pop a trophy. Or I've got 100% and I'm going to have something I don't like. Or now I've got to go make another account and see if I, download this and see if I like it. And
yeah, but do you not think that's overcomplicating it?
It is overcomplicating it, but do you answer to that as Sony? Do you say, well, we recognize that and we want to give people more choices to let them delete? Because I don't think you wouldn't be losing sales in anything. They'd be gaining sales, if anything. Because people that are going to do the DLC, they're not going to delete their 100% in the game because there's 5 DLC trophies. They're going to buy that DLC. They're not going to zero that out.
Yeah, but here's okay.
They're going to make less alternate accounts. Yeah, I just think if you want people to try the guilty pleasures thing, you should give them a little bit more control over.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's kind of like DLC, for example. It was a foreign concept when this console generation started, and it sort of slowly crept in. And when it first sort of became, I guess EA kind of kicked off with the $10 project or whatever they want to call it. But it slowly crept in, and everybody at the time just was like, "This is not acceptable." Blah blah blah. Let's all rage against the machine, kind of, as gamers. Let's all get annoyed about it and get annoyed. Now it's like those people have just sort of now accepted the fact and are buying the deal. I don't know. Human beings are very complicated and weird in this, because personally my mind just can't comprehend it. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, the DLC is an optional thing, even if you're a completionist. You've got to stop somewhere, and in some respects,
that's just it. You don't. I think there's a lot of people that would rather have 5 games at 100% than have their 10 games and have to suffer with 90% because there's some game that.
But do you not think the danger is that in doing those kinds of things, being, I guess, to quote what Smart Bomb initially put in the thread, being a slave to the whole DLC and completionism, do you not think that the part and parcel of that, part of the consequences is that they forget why they actually got involved with games in the first place?
I don't think it's involved in games in the first place. I think it's just that you have to understand people have a different form of victory in their head, and it all comes down in some way, shape, or form, like how you show it. It's kind of like the badge of honor or the trophy or the certificate. People like to play games against other people so they can be like, talk smack and go, hi, so and so that I know, I kicked your butt at Call of Duty on one-on-one, or I've got a platinum in this, I beat this game, or I've got 100% completion rate, is important to somebody. It's very hard to achieve, and if you've set that as a goal in your head, you're not going to just step back and go, well, I've let it slip this time, and so, oh well, all those other 50 trophies that I earned 100%, it's not a big deal. No, it is. I might have spent years doing that, and now all of a sudden I got something that's out of my control that happens, and it downright is going to get to those people. It's going to eat at, their form of the win, because they're going to like, well, now I got 99%. And then they're going to accept that, and they're going to step back, and then it might happen again. It's like, well, at least I'm at 90%. And then you're just going to have all these people at these different levels, and really what it is they're ultimately, they're lacking the ability to fix that. That's something Sony could put in there probably very easily, like, I just want to delete this game off my trophy profile. Zero it out. It doesn't count, or a server shutdown. How many of us have run into that too? Like and you got to race to finish the online game, just to finish it.
It's terrible actually, because I'm only about 4 trophies. I was only about 2 or 3 trophies off getting.
Yeah, you'll never be able to 100% that game.
But you know what? Here's the thing. From my perspective, I don't care, because I'm kind of like,
You don't, because you don't have a 100% thing, but.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of what I'm trying to say about the fun aspect of it is, while I was going through the motions of playing that game, I actually met a very good friend of mine who lives in Germany, and so, I had a great time with the game. And even though that now I just, I know I can't get the platinum, it doesn't matter to me. Yeah, sure, it sucks a little bit, but at the same time, it's kind of like, I'd rather have the good times and experiences and the friendship that I forged as a result of playing that game than, a virtual item saying, well, you got a platinum. You did everything 100% in the game.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, wait. Now, Sony comes out with a new process. They're going to say if there's any DLC that shows, now your platinum's not going to show until you have 100% in that game. All DLC, everything like that. It's going to be retroactive. So now, what's your completion percentage? Do you know?
Mine's roughly around about 55%.
55%. How many platinums do you have?
149.
149. So you got 150. So next thing you know, they put this in the process, and now you've got 75 platinums. Boom.
No, they can't do that. That'd be wrong.
No. Play with me. Play with me. What's your mentality now? You beat those games. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They've taken some stats away from you, but it doesn't matter because you had fun playing them. You beat them.
Hold on. What wouldn't annoy me is the fact they took stats away from it. On the flip side, what would annoy me is that kind of forces my hand that if I want to do it, and I emphasise that if I want to do it, I would have to buy DLC. Now, if you're forcing someone to buy DLC, that for me is wrong.
Well, aren't you doing that if you're a completionist? I just put you in that completionist mentality. They're forced to buy DLC. You don't always know about the DLC on day one when you buy that game. You don't know if there's going to be DLC. Yeah, you don't know if you're going to sell that game back in 2 years and then all of a sudden they're going to come out with a DLC pack.
Yeah, but as it stands at the moment, that's an optional thing. And if anybody was forced to do it, you can say, well, completionists are forced to do it. No, they're not. They're forced to do it by their own mentality, not by EA or Sony.
Well, if you lost your platinums, you wouldn't be forced to do it either, except for your mentality of wanting to earn platinums.
Well, you kind of would be forced to do it if you wanted to earn the platinum on it. So yeah. You're kind of forcing people to buy it, whereas at the moment it's optional, always has been, and hopefully always will be.
Either way, I think guilty pleasures are greatly affected by, for trophy hunters, it's, back to the original discussion here. Yeah. Guilty pleasures are definitely affected from trophies. Things have changed dramatically. I can remember playing Oblivion over and over and over just for fun as a different kind of character, and I wasn't concerned of any of that and then you go into like Skyrim, which is similar but in a different vein of gameplay, and it's like I'm looking at the trophy list. What things do I have to do? I'm still having fun, but not as much fun because it's not just open. It's not me just trying to cover every corner of the world and go here and go there. It's well, I've got to stay on this path a little bit.
Yeah.
Even though it's an open world, I've still got to stay on this path because I've got this trophy that I've got to check off and get to that platinum.
And I think it's an interesting question you pose, because I do want to make this quite clear as well, because you've obviously got your stance on it, I've got my stance on it, but neither of us are right or wrong. Don't get me wrong, we're not saying that if you're a completionist you're wrong in the head to do that. Please don't misinterpret that to be the case. We're just questioning, essentially whether or not you're losing some of the fun by being a completionist. And I'm with you in some respect, Katie. I think it is a lot less fun now for some of those people. I think the days of going and this kind of goes back to one of the other podcasts that we did. This kind of has a knock-on effect for retail. If people aren't wanting to go, it's Saturday afternoon, I don't know what I want to play, I'll go take a look down the local game shop, see what's in and see what I fancy, pick something up on a whim. Games shops have relied on that kind of business for so many years, and now that's slowly going away through numerous reasons, and part and parcel of that is because people aren't, doing the guilty pleasure thing.
Well, I know as a trophy hunter, you've got to research a little bit more. You almost know what you want. Maybe I'm not. Am I the only one that does that? Do you look at trophy lists ever?
Not straight off.
Pre-purchase? No. Okay. Well, you're completely relaxed in your gaming, and I'm in the middle there. I'm not as affected as a 100% completionist. But I'm affected enough where it's
actually, no, I tell a lie. There's probably occasions where I have looked at it, thinking about it.
Well, if let me put it this way, would you buy a game still if you knew like you can't get a platinum because it's glitched?
I'd still buy. I have done, and I still will.
Okay.
I've still got Ghostbusters in the cupboard. I'm actually tempted because.
Well, see, that game was glitched originally. I was one of the first people who played that. I had it before it came out, and
I've been tempted to crack it open just to have a little laugh with it again. But as I say, even if you can't get the platinum on it, a majority of games these, certainly in this PS3 generation, have all had pretty solid, decent single-player campaigns.
Well, you hang on to your games too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, see, some of us that sell them back as well, we want to beat them so we can sell them, get a little bit of money back, so we can help purchase the next game.
I won't say I've kept all the games that I've played over this generation. I'm still only about 100.
When you get a game that's glitched though, and you're waiting on that trophy to be fixed, then you're stuck holding it, and you're like, well, it's all done except for that.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, it doesn't bother me. I'm kind of like, if a trophy is glitched and I can't get the platinum of it, depends on how much I care and like the game as to whether I'm bothered about it.
Yeah. I'm in the middle zone there. I'm bothered a little bit by this stuff, and I feel bad for
example, like, okay, I'll pick a game for example, like say with SSX, right? If someone told me I couldn't get the platinum on that because it was glitched, I wouldn't care less, because the gameplay, the SSX, the snowboarding, the whole package, is such a great fun experience that it just wouldn't bother me.
Yeah, and I would never pick a game just because of an easy platinum either if it was absolute crap. And it's just like I've had people tell me the Hannah Montana was a cop out, and they can kiss my butt. I mean, I'll play what I want to play. It's the same kind of mentality going the other way. It's like, it's the same as glitching though too. I won't glitch a trophy because then I didn't earn it. What's the point? In my mind, it's like, why do that? Yeah, I know you have a different take on that, but it's the same kind of thing. It all involves your take on what your goal is, and it all clearly affects your enjoyment of gaming. No matter what we say, it's going to affect your enjoyment of gaming. You have a very relaxed stance, so congratulations on that.
I think so. I don't know. I think sometimes. It can lead to some very heated debates. I think there's, there's certainly some strong opinions on it, as ever. But I think that the key thing to remember is that, whichever way you play, or whatever your opinion is on it, don't ever think that someone else's opinion's invalid, and that they're wrong to do that, because essentially the key thing is, as long as we all have fun. And kind of the point of this show really, with talking about guilty pleasures, is kind of reminisce a little bit about some of the guilty pleasures where we had fun, and to remember that even if you are a completionist, or whether you're the hardcore completionist, or the relaxed person, or the person that doesn't really care about any of it at all, is to forget about the complexities, and take the time to just go out to a shop and take a stab on something, even if it's like £5, you've never heard of it. Just pick it up and have a blast with it. If that means you get all the trophies on it and you apply the completionist method to it, great. If you don't, if you apply a relaxed method, don't. Just remember to have fun with it. I think it's the key message there. I think it's a very important one that we should all sort of take something away from on that, regardless of how we play, or don't. If you like trophies to dictate the way that you buy, so be it, but still take that plunge every now and again.
Cool. So there you have it. Encouragement for you to get out there and try something new. And even if somebody has to try it on a different account,
so be it,
something to be said to that.
At least try it.
Yep. Give it a shot.
Yeah, because there's tons that I could probably mention, but I don't think we'd have enough time for that. I was thinking, it was funny when we were talking about the PS2 thing. I was actually thinking of some of the PS2 games that that I'd sort of thought about, and like the Kessen series. I'd also thought about some of the music type games that I'd played, like Amplitude, which was the precursor to obviously the Guitar Hero series.
Yeah.
That was one of my guilty pleasures.
Well, those are all history, but don't you think, like, if people don't try, like, perusing some of the PSN store, they're gonna miss some really good current opportunities, right?
And I think exactly, and I think if we're looking back, in 5 years' time, if we're looking back, we're going to end up remembering those games for the wrong reasons. We're not going to be looking back at those games because they try to do something unique and different and engaging players. We're going to be looking back in 5 years' time, going, well, it had technical issues and it didn't sell well because the trophies wasn't there and it just wasn't engaging enough for completionists and all this other thing. And I think that's, I wouldn't want us to be at that point in 5 years' time when we're looking back at this generation where we're sort of looking at those things. I'd rather us look back at, what those games were all about.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're coming up on PS4. Do you have any predictions on any of that changing, or anything with the way these, it's handled? Do you think having a lot more demo it,
I don't know,
might lead more to like people relaxing a little bit more, like opening up the guilty pleasure thing, because not everything has demos right now. Not everything is open to just try it for a few minutes, which is one of the concepts with the PS4.
Well, see, the thing is, I wouldn't want to put any predictions on it because it could go both ways. We're thanks to this generation, we're sort of, at a crossroads where it could go either way. So what you could find is that you will find more people having guilty pleasures because of the ability to stream and showcase games. And so, like, when we had the PS4 discussion, I said I wouldn't mind people coming in, checking my stream out if I'm playing something they'd never heard of. I'm all for showing people, just like the way that people ask me these days. People still ask me to this day, is this game any good? Is that game any good? Have you played it? And I can only give my opinion at the time, but at least this generation I can show them. But at the same time, it could go the opposite way, which is, if more and more people take the completionist mentality, then that social integration, that being able to show people what a game is like via video streaming isn't going to matter, and it will become a redundant feature of the PS4. So I don't know. I wouldn't like to say which way it goes, but there is a danger that it could cause things to go backwards slightly. But I'd prefer to be more optimistic and say, if it means that people don't send me like 20 messages over Skype or
Well, see, I think all that
Facebook or
stuff will be
Twitter
overwhelming.
and
I
things,
think that's where I say it will be overwhelming, and I think it'll shut people off because when you get bombarded by that stuff, most people, your response has to be you don't answer anyone or you don't get involved in it. That's why I
I'd
say
still do that, but what I'm saying to you now is instead of like, for example, somebody says to me, "What's your honest opinion on the game, this game?" So rather than having to write 3 or 4 paragraphs about it, I can say, "Well, look, I think it's pretty good. Why don't you see for yourself? Come and look in the stream." I'd still be social, I don't think I'd be closed off in that respect.
Well, isn't that kind of lazy too? Because there could be millions of other people that posted clips where they could just go and see without
Yeah,
Dante,
but I mean,
Dante,
yeah, but,
tell me, Dante, how's this, Dante?
yeah, but
Because then it's your time.
Okay, but let me put it this way. My understanding of the way the streaming thing works is that you can still talk to the person you're that's watching. So if I say invite a friend to my stream and they're asking me questions about a game, I can say, look, I'm showing you what's going on with the game. This is why I like it. And I can show them in real time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you could argue there's an element of laziness, but my understanding of the way the whole system works is that you can still have a conversation with them and stuff. So like, if your buddy goes, "Oh, that's really cool," and I go, "Meh," do you know what I mean? You're having a dynamic conversation while being able to actively show people.
Yeah, I mean, you can show them at the same time. You can have a voice conversation now too, though.
Which is better than you writing 3 or 4 paragraphs and then still having to, and then people questioning what I'm putting in those paragraphs and so on. I can have a more, I don't know, I guess a better conversation about the recommendation that way, rather than just saying, well, this is my opinion, blah blah blah. I can say this is my opinion and I can back it up with actual streamed video.
Well, what I wonder more about is you're able to take control of someone's player.
Yeah, but
would that be a game that you own and they own, or would it be like if you've purchased a game, can I try it by
I've heard a lot of people question that, and I'm kind of like, let's put it in context, is that you're not I just want to ease people's fears. It's not going to be a case of I think Sony would be extremely stupid to do this.
I can log in and play all of your collection of games.
It's not going to be a case of where you're talking to your buddy and then your buddy can play a joke on you by taking over your game without you even realising it until they're playing it. That's nonsense. That kind of system isn't going to happen. I can tell you.
I never thought that. You getting people thinking that that's the way it's going to work?
Well, a majority of people have, thought that's the case.
I was thinking it was more like, I get to a level and I'm having trouble and I go, hey Dante, here I'm going to give you control, and I send you and you're working your controller and it's on your screen and my screen the same way, and you're actually controlling my character. That's the way I thought it would work.
Yeah. But I'm guessing that you would still, I guess what I'm trying to point out is that you would still have to, essentially I would still have to go through some sort of permission thing to actually access it, rather than you just
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking you probably both have to own the same game or it wouldn't. Even though I'm not liking the whole idea at all, because then we talked about this with cheating. I mean, if someone's doing your trophy for you...
Well, if anything, I think one thing that the new streaming service will do will be it will cut out cheating in some respect. If those people are, if someone's going for an online trophy, I mean, if the PS3 system's recording video footage of every 15-minute period, I would think that somewhere along the lines, people who are tuning into. So let's take, for example, some of the top people at the trophy, on the top of the trophy leaderboards, for example. We know some of those are cheaters. There's no denying it.
Most.
Right? Most. But I'm going to say some, because I don't want to point fingers.
Okay,
but,
I'll say most.
We know they cheat, and
right.
When I talk about cheating, I'm not just talking about, the odd one or two here. We're talking about a large percentage of what they've got, and the fact that, they're not just taking advantage of, say, save exploits, they're also working together in teams of 5 or 10 people. So, in that respect, to some degree, they're cheating. with the PS4, those people will have a profile already, i.e. they'll be well known for being the top of the leaderboards, and so people will be able to drop into their video stream and see what they're doing. And if they are cheating, they will get caught out. And here's the thing, if I saw someone cheating on PS4, for example, if I'm watching someone's live feed, I'm seeing someone
Well, you're assuming they have to have a live. You're assuming they have to have a live feed. Maybe it's not a given. Maybe it's like I have to turn that on the same as anything else. What if I choose not to share that?
Okay, let's just go on the assumption that they would be live streaming. I mean, come on, if you're top of the leaderboards, there's an ego aspect there. You can't deny that people at top of the leaderboards would not open it up and say, "Hey, look at me, I'm brilliant."
Yeah, maybe.
And so with the ego side of it, things you could, and as I say, I'm just speculating here, but if anybody was then able to come in and watch your live stream, so let's say you get 1,000 people watching one of the top trophy hunters in the world's live stream and sees them cheating, given the nature of the way that the PS4 is socially connected, I can imagine 1,000 people are probably going to report those people. And in some way, in that respect, it will cut out a lot of that crap. It will cut out a lot of people cheating. They'll get caught if they're online.
Yeah, I don't know. Then it might be like, a mass chunk of people reporting all kinds of crazy stuff.
It's the same with...
And it being an overwhelming thing of like, okay, well now do they have a duty to check videos? Is that something we're expecting Sony to do?
Here's the thing. I read an interesting article.
Because at Sony now, it's not the actual game. If what are you going to take the video now, and you got to send it to Activision for a Call of Duty, and you got to send it.
No. Here's what my understanding of it. I read an article about this, which is very true. In case in point, which is it will cut out a lot of this trash talking crap, because people will record videos of that and they will now have evidence to back up their complaint. As it is at the moment, anybody can be reported on PSN for numerous different reasons. Mm-hmm. But let's just say, for example, you report so let's say if you're playing Call of Duty on PS3 and you report somebody for being racist towards you, and we know it happens, Sony would have to investigate that thoroughly, and I imagine on the current system it's extremely difficult to do that. Yeah? But if you're doing it on the PS4, for example, you'd be able to record the footage of that and back up your thing, which would make it easier for Sony to actually moderate that aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And so it will proactively cut a lot of the crap that comes with online gameplay with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is what I'm saying, and when we talk about guilty pleasures and all the other things that combine into it, there are a lot of positives going forward with the PS4, that could encourage that with the social net, because I mean we're sort of focusing on the social features here, but the social features are going to help to drive more people's interest in guilty pleasures and picking up titles that we wouldn't necessarily think of and so on. But at the same time, it could be also, it could go the opposite way. But one thing's for sure, when the PS4 launches, this is something we'll probably have to re-tackle again, because I'd be intrigued to come back to this issue and see whether or not it has, to see which direction it has gone.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we need to tackle soon, some talk about some of the trophy hacking and things like that, because it's clearly very involved, and with the PS4, I think people are interested in that right about now, particularly with where we're at with the website and where we're looking to go with that, because we've got to develop something. We've either going to have to accept a large chunk of it, or have a self-reporting system, or because again, you run into if we're having trophy leaderboards. I can't picture hiring a whole chunk of staff to check people and, are they good to go, and, let's watch their video on the PS4 and see, and like some of this stuff, when you think about it from the aspect of detection and how it affects other things, it's very complex, and it's becoming even more complex, and it's clear the PS4 is going to throw that into a whole nother realm of complexity. So, I'm always about the fun. You know me. My main focus is always about the fun. Um, First and foremost, I just want to enjoy playing games, but I also respect the whole idea of competition. Everything comes back to competition. Dante wants to get a certain number of platinums. You know,
Yeah, but I don't do
somebody
that
else
for other
might
people. I
want
do that for
100%.
me.
Someone else might want to,
Yeah.
play as many games as possible, or it might be about total number of trophies. There's all these kinds of things. Beating a certain person that's considered really good at a certain series, or anything like that. They're all vastly complex in their people's interest level and what they want to see and what they want to show and brag about. And it's even trophy cards. They're complex. You think about it, what people want to show on them. It's everything from the art to stats to their rank to number of platinums. Different people have different focuses for what drives them in gaming. And I guess my only point is that Sony could do a little bit of good, I think, to the trophy hunting community if they were to allow you to just zero out something 100,
Yeah.
make it disappear. That'd be a great little feature. Very simple, I think, to add. I don't know. My 2 cents.
Let's
Let's agree to talk here soon, though, about the trophy cheating and we also we're talking about some of the stuff with the PS4. We have to revisit with PlayStation Home.
Yeah.
Some other good topics like that. So, but I think we're coming up on our time for today as well.
Yeah. I just want to sort of finish on this now. Obviously when the podcast post goes live during the week, the podcast recap post, do get involved. Let us know.
Let's hear everyone's guilty pleasures.
Yeah,
What's your
we want to
favorite
hear what
games
your guilty pleasures are. The games that you think you shouldn't like but you love. The games that are terrible but you love. Those kinds of things, and share them with us, and we'll actually at the beginning of next week's show, regardless of what the topic is, we'll get some of those read out, and share some of those with everybody. And the other thing is as well, I just wanted to point out that apologies, but last week we actually forgot to read out the results of the poll regarding the show that we did, which was to do with rumours. And it turned out that the overwhelming majority of people that voted actually like the concept of rumours, which surprised me somewhat, and there was some interesting thoughts in there. But we apologise for not pointing that out last week. But
Okay.
thanks for getting involved in the poll of that, and it was interesting to see that people still want to see rumours
And hey,
readily available.
the poll on this one coming up, do you want to ask people if they think trophies have affected guilty pleasures? Do you want to just ask people their thoughts on that as well, or what do you think?
I'm just thinking about how I would put that in a poll question, because I kind of
It might be a little tricky. Maybe just ask people as part of their discussion of guilty pleasures what they think about trophy hunting and its relationship to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we could put something as simple as a yes or no question, which is, do you think, I don't know, trophy hunting has ruined guilty pleasure purchases? And, put that up, and maybe something to consider.
Yeah, true, false kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Anything else?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Other than I believe that IDP for Life, who was on last week with us, is still looking for a co-host. Do get in touch with him, and the news team are still receiving applications for the news team positions. So do keep them coming. We shall be in touch with some people shortly about that. But yeah, do keep the applications coming. There's been some good ones so far. So I look forward to seeing more people apply.
Okay, cool beans. All right. And I suppose I'll say we'll see you next week. If you're here in the U.S., happy St. Paddy's Day.
To be sure.
Whatever that would be for your respective country, or if you just want to use that as an excuse to drink some beer today.
Guinness.
Some Guinness. Feel free. And have a great day, and we will catch you on the fly.